Are you also the kind of person who opened BeamNG after this new update, saw the new layout, and was basically like,
What? What the
so don't worry, you don't need to watch another video about this again, because I'm going to walk you through pretty much everything you need to know about this new layout. So first, let me get out of full screen. And when you press the escape button, unlike before where you could see all those main options across the screen, you'll now see these 4 tabs: System, Free Roam, Vehicle, and Environment. And by default, when you press escape, the Free Roam tab is selected. So let's go through everything one by one. The first option is Resume, which basically just resumes the game and starts the physics again. Then we have Repair Vehicle. So let me damage the car for a second, and now when I press Repair Vehicle, it will simply repair the vehicle, although we could already do the exact same thing by pressing the Insert key on the keyboard. Next, we have Vehicle Selector. This is basically the same vehicle selector you can access directly by pressing Ctrl+U, so you don't actually need to come into this menu every time. Then we have Map. Previously, you could find this option directly from the tabs at the top, but now it's located inside the Free Roam section. Here you can see all the points of interest on the map, but I'm not going into detail about that because you guys probably already know what this is used for. Next is Photo Mode. This was also available from the top of the screen before, but now it's located here, and honestly, the layout has changed a little bit more than the actual feature itself. For example, these settings used to appear on the bottom right side, whereas now they're on the top left. Obviously, a few things have been added and changed, but I'd say around 90% of it is still basically the same. So if you want to learn photo mode properly, you can check out my photo mode tutorial. I'll leave that in the description, and after watching that, you'll pretty much know how to use this like a pro. One thing I really like here, though, is Open Gallery, because now you can view the photos you've taken directly inside the game without having to minimize the game and find them somewhere else. And if you still want to know where those screenshots are actually being saved, just click Open in Explorer. It'll take you directly to the folder where your screenshots are being saved. Next, we have the replay option. If you watched my How to Make Broken Bridge videos tutorial, you might remember that I explained how to add this replay UI from the UI Apps section, but that was in the previous version of BeamNG. With this new update, you don't have to go into UI Apps and manually add it anymore. It's already available right here. So let me show you how you can use it. First, open replay, then start recording. Now let's drive our vehicle for a bit, and once you're done, press escape and stop the recording. Down here, you'll now see all of your recorded in-game physics footage. Select whichever recording you want. I'll just select the newest one. Now let's make it full screen, and if I press 4, you'll get this cinematic camera that follows the vehicle. Pretty useful if you try to create cinematic shots without manually controlling the camera. Now press escape again. Next, we have eject, and as you can probably guess from the name, this lets you eject from the current vehicle. Then we have select level. This one is pretty self-explanatory as well. It allows you to select another level. But here's something you might not have noticed. You can actually change the display size of these level previews. You can make them larger or smaller depending on what you prefer. Apart from that, the rest of these options are pretty basic, so there's not really much to explain here. And finally, we have exit level. Again, you can probably guess what this one does. Now, let's move over to the right side. Here you'll find the new tabs for all the vehicles currently present in your game. Right now, we only have one vehicle spawned, so let's first see what options we have for this particular vehicle. The first option simply puts the selected vehicle into drive mode. Then we have the second option, which gives you a bunch of actions you might already recognize. These are basically the same kinds of actions you used to find inside the radio menu, although the radio menu still has a lot more options and things you can do. And if you haven't seen my radio menu guide yet, I'll leave that in the description as well, because it covers all of those options in much more detail. Now, option gives you clone current vehicle. And as you can probably guess, this simply creates a copy of your current vehicle. Now, if I press tab, I can switch between these vehicles. And as you can see, as soon as we have another vehicle spawn, the NPC AI option appears at the top. From here, you can select the vehicle and choose different AI behaviors. So let's select one of these AI options. But before that, let me move this other vehicle onto the same road so it's easier for the AI to follow us. All right, now let's switch to the other car and select the NPC AI option. And let's choose chase. And as you can see, the car is driving completely on its own and trying to chase us. But wait, why the hell's it going in that direction instead of chasing me? Okay, now it's following us. So I guess the AI sometimes decides to have a little moment of its own. But anyway, you get the idea. You can use these new AI options to control the behavior of other vehicles without having to go through the old menus every time. Now let's go back to Free Roam and delete this second vehicle. So now let's switch to the next tab. Here again on the right side, you'll see pretty much the same vehicle options we just saw. But first, let me just clone my car here so we have another vehicle to work with. All right, so starting from the left, the first option is vehicle config. Most of the things here are pretty much the same as what we had before, but you'll notice that a few options have now been categorized into different tabs. So let's quickly go through them. The first one, this little engine-looking tab, contains all the options related to the vehicle's parts and configuration. And this is also where you can find the options for adding dummies inside your car. By the way, if you don't even know how to add dummies to a vehicle in the first place, I've already made a separate video explaining exactly how to do that, so you can check that out as well. Next, we have this meter-looking icon, which is basically the tuning tab. Honestly, the majority of you probably won't use this very often, so let's not spend too much time here and move on. Next is this paint spray-looking icon, and you can probably already guess what this one does. Yep, this is where you can change the color of your vehicle, and if you go further into the configuration options, you can also adjust things like how metallic or rough the paint looks. So basically, you can tweak the overall appearance and texture of the car. And finally, in this last tab, you can change things like the license plate. The rest of these options are pretty self-explanatory, and honestly, they're not really that important for what we're doing here, so let's move on. The next option on the left is Reset Vehicle. Again, this is basically the same thing we've already seen before. Then we have Recover Last Vehicle, the last row. This is also pretty much the same option that was available before. Next is Flip Vehicle. Let me show you where this can actually be useful. So let's say you've somehow managed to put your car in a situation like this. Yep, completely upside down. Using the flip vehicle option, you can simply flip it back into the correct position. Now, I'm sure some of you might be thinking, wait, why do we even need this option when we can just press insert and get our car repaired anyway? And honestly, fair question, but it is what it is. Sometimes, especially if you're creating content, you might just want to flip the vehicle without completely resetting and repairing it. Otherwise, it's probably not something you use very often. And finally, we have Vehicle Selector. Again, you don't actually need to come all the way here just to select another vehicle. You can directly press Ctrl+E and go straight to the Vehicle Selector where you can choose whatever vehicle you want. So now let's move on to the Environment tab. First, let me place my car somewhere on the road so we can actually see the changes we're about to make. The first option here is basically for changing the time of day, but the real options are actually inside this More Time and Weather options section, so let's open that up. First, you can control the clouds and wind, and as you can see, you can even change the angle of the clouds. That's actually pretty cool, especially if you're trying to create a specific atmosphere for your recordings. Next, we have Fog Density, and as the name suggests, this controls how much fog you have in the environment. Then we have ground wind. Again, pretty self-explanatory. This controls the amount of wind happening at ground level. Obviously, you probably wouldn't want this much wind, so let's bring the value down a bit. By the way, you might notice that the plants and trees aren't really moving according to the wind speed. I was actually expecting to see more of an effect from this, but apparently not yet. Hopefully the developers improve this in future updates, although even with that, this update has already made BeamNG feel pretty insane when you compare it to how the game looked and behaved before. Anyway, you can still experience the effect of this ground wind while driving your vehicle. And there's another cool thing here. You can now change the sun's position using this north override slider, so you have much more control over where the sunlight is coming from. Next, we have these celestial settings. A lot of creators have already covered this part, so I won't go too deep into it. Basically, BeamNG now has a much more realistic astronomical sky simulation. It takes things like latitude, longitude, date, and time into account. So instead of having a simple static sky, you can now get things like a more accurate sun and moon position, different moon phases, real star constellations, the Milky Way, and even dynamic events like solar eclipses and meteors. So yeah, that's a pretty big upgrade. Now let's go back to the main environment settings. Here, you can also enable AI traffic. So if I enable this, you'll see AI traffic vehicles spawning around the map. And if we go into more traffic options, you'll find a bunch of additional settings. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory, so let's try something interesting. I'm going to select Spawn Police. All right, the vehicles have respawned, but I don't see any police cars, so let me find one for you. Okay, here we go. There's the police car. Anyway, let's test something. If I try to hit this police car, wait, why does this sound more like an ambulance? Look at that. Now it's actually going to chase our vehicle, just like you'd expect from games like GTA. I know it's a pretty small detail, but honestly, it's really fun to finally have something like this in BeamNG. And here's another small thing you might have noticed. When you're about to spawn traffic, these little numbers show up. By default, BeamNG will spawn 5 traffic vehicles and 10 parked vehicles, but you can actually change these numbers depending on your PC. Just go to system.options.gameplay.traffic, and from there you can change the number of traffic vehicles and parked vehicles. This can actually be pretty useful because everyone's PC has different specifications. If you're running a lower-end PC, you might want to reduce these numbers. And if you got a powerful PC, you can obviously increase them. So hopefully that little tip helps you out. One more section here that I almost forgot to mention, more simulation options. Inside this section, you can basically tweak some of the game's simulation physics. For example, you can change the gravity to different values so you can experiment with different gravity levels and see how your vehicles behave. You can also change the simulation speed, which basically lets you slow down or speed up the physics of the game. There isn't really much else to explain here, so that's pretty much everything you need to know about these simulation options. All right, now we're finally moving to the System tab. Inside the first option, you'll find all these settings that were already available before the update. I've actually made a separate dedicated video explaining these settings, so if you want to understand them properly, you can check that out. But if you've been following my BeamNG beginner guide videos, you probably already have a pretty good idea of what most of these settings do. Next, we have the Mods tab, and I'm pretty sure this is basically the same as it was before the update. You still have the Mod Manager, where you can manage all your installed mods. Let me activate all my mods, then we have the Repository and Automation tabs as well. Next is HUD Apps. This one used to be called UI Apps and was accessible from the top menu. Now it's been moved here and is called HUD Apps. There's actually a pretty nice improvement here. You now have a proper layout editor with a dedicated edit mode. As you can see, there are already a bunch of layouts available. You can choose one of these layouts and then add whatever apps you want to it. You can also remove apps or make any other changes you want. So if you've previously used UI apps, this should feel pretty familiar, but the new layout system makes managing everything much easier. Second to last, we have change level. Again, you can probably already guess what this does. It allows you to switch to another map or level, and as you can see, the colors look completely messed up after restarting the level, but don't worry, you don't have to panic. I actually did this on purpose. If you've watched my previous video about improving BeamNG graphics, you'll know that I installed the GFX Suite mod, and that's what's causing these colors to look like this right now. We could go into the GFX Suite settings and fix it from there, but for the sake of this video, I'll simply disable the mod and restart the game. And remember, I said restart the game. I didn't say change the level. So let's restart it, and there we go. Everything is back to normal. So that's basically the new BeamNG layout and where you can find all the important options after the update. I hope this video cleared things up for you, especially if you opened the game after the update and had absolutely no idea where everything went. If this guide helped you out, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in another video. It's Zen, signing off.